Keep it 100 and kill yourself. Don't bullshit with it.
What up, dog? I'm back at the BlackShot podcast, episode 10. Today's episode is What in the World? So, as always, we're going to cover three topics. Um, Topic 1, Roe versus Wade. Topic 2 is toxic masculinity. Topic 3 is lacrosse in the Olympics. So, let's get into this first topic of the day. Roe versus Wade being overturned. So what that effectively does is that pushes the laws and regulations for abortion from being protected by the Constitution to being individually determined by the state's legislature. Makes it more of a local issue, but it's a federal issue. And a lot of states have trigger laws, which means the moment Roe v. Wade was overturned, those laws took effect. And there's a variety of those based in each state, apparently. And that has caused a lot of uproar, right? Because what Roe v. Wade gave women was the undeniable option of terminating a pregnancy, for whatever reason they deemed fit, okay? It gave them that option. And it was a viable option for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, predominantly economic reasons, financial reasons, and so forth and so on. And it gave that woman a right to choose what it was to take place, with her body. Now, the second part of that, rape and incest exceptions. A lot of states don't have them. So if you're the victim of rape, incest, molestation, etc., and the result is you're impregnated, there is no law that says that because of how you were impregnated, you can now have a legal abortion in the given state. A lot of states that have laws against abortion don't have these rape or incest exceptions. They don't have that caveat that grants abuse victims the wherewithal to not have to carry the child of their abuser. Which, if your state does not have that exception, that's fucked up. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That is entirely fucked up. I get it. There's a lot of people who follow the idea of every life is precious and we need to save every life. I get that part. That makes perfect sense, and I'm on board with that. In the event that these were two consenting people who decided to engage in the act of procreation. But if it was one person taking advantage of another person, that's fucked up. And they have to deal with the scars of that trauma in addition to having to deal with carrying a child as a result of that trauma, which creates more trauma and more financial burden. Then they have to birth that child, which creates more trauma and more financial burden. And that's literally adding insult to injury. You're making a bad situation worse. And for all those who want to argue that there's all of these repercussions of getting an abortion, I agree. There's a lot of possible outcomes for getting an abortion. There's a lot of them, and there's a lot of negative results of getting an abortion. Though it does not result, normally speaking, in you having to maintain financial and legal responsibility for another fucking person. And that's the end result of an abortion is you don't have to have a baby. And so you don't have to raise another person. That's the sort of end goal, if you will. Now, why a person does it, it's entirely up to them. And me, as a non womb possessing person, I do not have the right to tell a womb possessing person whether they can or cannot have a baby, whether they will or will not have a baby. That is not my right. That is not my place. That is not my authority. And for anybody who is not a womb possessing person, that's not your argument. Let the womb possessing people determine whether or not they're going to utilize their womb and bring forth a life. You non-womb possessing people, generally speaking, just carry the fucking catalyst. And I'm going to say it in plain English. Men don't get to tell women what they can and cannot do with their bodies. Flat the fuck out. And if you disagree, too fucking bad. It is what it is. You don't carry the burden of carrying a child, so you don't have the authority or the right to tell a woman whether she will or won't carry a child, or whether she will or won't get rid of a child that she possesses in her womb, because you don't have the ability in the physiological, or anatomical sense to take on that responsibility. You cannot relieve her of said responsibility and take on that physically, physiologically, or anatomically. So, shut the fuck up and move the fuck out the way. If she doesn't want to carry that child, that's her decision to make. Whether or not you agree with it is entirely fucking obsolete. If she wants to consider your opinion, she'll fucking ask for it. But to legally rule that, oh, she can't have an abortion, she has to carry that baby to term with no exemptions, that's fucking foolish. That's torture. Because now you're telling every womb possessing person, regardless if you're raped or not, hey, if somebody comes rapes you and impregnates you, you still have to carry the rapist baby. And for all of you who try to advocate, well, there's many people who were productive members of society who lived and thrived and did all these good things, and they were the result of a rape. Yeah, they were also the result of their mother or their birthing person making a fucking decision on them living or not. Somebody else was not the person making the decision for them, unless that person was unless the person possessing the child was deemed mentally incompetent. So, I'm not advocating whether or not abortion should be legal or illegal. I'm plainly telling people you don't have the right to take that option away from women. That's fucked up, and you know it's fucked up. And if you're a woman and you're advocating that women shouldn't be allowed to do that, that's even more fucked up. Because now, that's fucking infighting. You are literally fighting against your own fucking self-interest. And if they're like, oh man, you're a dude, why do you care so much? Because I'm a father. Because I'm a husband. Because I have sisters. I have nieces. So you silly motherfuckers who jump on here and be like, oh, well, every life is precious and you shouldn't take a life. Would you want somebody to come rape you and then force you to carry their child? And before you avoid the fucking question, the answer is no. No, the fuck you wouldn't. So why would you force somebody else to be in that same position? If you're raped, do you want to carry the baby? Answer that in plain English. Give me a yes or no. Don't beat around the bush. Don't dance around it like the motherfucker at the judicial hearing. Don't beat around the bush like the lady who was on CNN. Don't beat around the bush like the white lady who was on Fox News. Don't beat around the bush like the motherfuckers on Good Morning America and CSNBC. Answer that shit in plain fucking English. Yes or no. And what makes it worse, there's a case in Ohio where a 10-year-old child was a rape victim and was impregnated at 10 years old and then had to go to Indiana to get an abortion, and they made more fuss about her crossing state lines to get an abortion than they did about the motherfucker who raped her. Make that make sense? And then when when the advocates for this pro-life movement and these folks who are arguing against abortion, when they were asked in plain English, do you think a 10-year-old rape victim should have to carry a child to term, they wouldn't give a yes or no answer. Lady beat around the bush and was like, oh, well, there's many options that they have, and the organization that I'm a part of gives all of this assistance both during the pregnancy and after birth. Ma'am, that wasn't the question. The question was, are you saying that you want a 10-year-old rape victim to have to carry a child to term and then subsequently birth that child? And she wouldn't answer the fucking question. That's just insulting. And she's a fucking woman. That's even worse. You're fighting against your own self-interest here, lady who possesses a womb or is assumed to possess a womb medically. Like, that's fucking crazy. You expect people to birth a child because they were pregnant, regardless of how they got pregnant, is fucked up, and there's no nice way to say that. What is it? Oh, that's inconsiderate. That's rude. No, that's fucked up, and it's evil. And if you are advocating that rape victims have to carry the children of their rapists, that's fucking evil, and you're fucking evil for advocating for it. Flat out. The next part of this is the segue to other issues such as Brown versus Board of Education. Because if we're going to overturn Roe versus Wade, which they did, which takes us back about 50 years in privacy laws for contraception and female health, right? You're also looking at things like undoing Brown versus Board of Education. You're undoing the miscegenation laws. You're undoing the Gay Marriage Act, right? If you disagree with homosexual activity and homosexual lifestyles, okay, well, stop putting this shit on TV if you disagree with it so much. Stop putting it in movies if you disagree with it so much, because there's a body of people. There's a collective of people who have to vote on every movie that goes in every fucking movie theater before it hits the big screen. There's a bunch of people who watched it and said yay or nay to this movie. So if you disagree with with there being gay people, sorry to tell you, no, I'm not sorry to tell you. So scratch that. I'ma just tell you, people are gonna continue to be gay. People are gonna fuck who they want to fuck. People are going to live with who they want to live with. People are going to have sex with who they want to have sex with. People are going to marry who the fuck they want to marry. And if you make it illegal, again, for gay people to get married, you're going to lose a lot of people. A lot of people are going to go and just get married in other countries and come back and be like, oh, you're not married? Yeah, no. We got married in Italy. Or we got married in Mexico. Or we got married in Cuba. We got married in Puerto Rico. Or we got married wherever the fuck else where it's legal for them to get married. And then they're going to come back here and they're going to be like, hey, we got married. And then you're going to have to fight that whole problem all the fuck over again. So I highly recommend you don't undo the Gay Marriage Act. I highly recommend you don't go touch Brown versus Board of Education, because now you're going to force there to be segregated schools again. And we're going to have to relive the issues of the 50s and 60s where we had white kids fighting black kids about having to learn the same curriculum in the same classroom. That's going to be extremely problematic. And if you undo the overturning and overturn the miscegenation laws, there's going to be a lot of people who will then have to go to prison, who are in these high profile places, because it's going to be illegal for people of different races, as they say, and I do that in air quotes because it's a fucking dumbass context that they use. It's going to be illegal for people of different races to be married. So if you go and you reinstitute miscegenation laws, hey, Clarence Thomas, your dumbass is going to have to get divorced, or it's going to be a federal crime because you're not married to a black person, black dude. Hey, Mrs. Thomas, that's going to be a problem for you because you're not married to a white man, white lady. Who is it? Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard's married to a white woman. Or at least he dates white women. I don't know if he's currently married to one. It's a lot of mixed race couples. So if you reinstitute miscegenation laws, it's going to make it illegal to to marry people who are not of your same ethnicity and or race, or the assumption thereof. So what? Two people who look black, but both of them aren't black, are gonna both have to check the black box, or they're gonna both have to check the Spanish box, or they're both gonna have to check the Caucasian box, or they're both gonna have to check the Polynesian box, or the Native American box, or the Hispanic box, right? And then you have to put an ethnicity on your fucking marriage license, which is gonna be another way for colorism to sneak in and biases on ethnicity to sneak in. As if it isn't already there. It's just another way that they get to annotate it. Another way they get to separate and segregate people. Since we live in a country where they want to bring everybody together, why are you so hell-bent on reversing the laws that bring people together? And in addition to that, we're all Americans, but we just live in different Americas. And I say that not in a geographical sense of North, Central, and South America. I say that in the social sense of the experience of black people in America, the experience of Spanish people in America, the experience of Arab people in America, the experience of Chinese, or not Chinese, but Asian people in America, the experience of natives in America, are all different than the experience of white people in America. And if you don't like it, so the fuck what? Historical fact. Look it the fuck up, genius. Now, so I highly recommend we don't go fucking with go reinstitute miscegenation laws, or we don't undo the Gay Marriage Act, or we don't undo the Medical Privacy Acts, we don't undo Brown versus Board of Education. Because if they do, whoo-wee boy, it's gonna be a lot of bloodshed. Because people are gonna start losing. People are gonna start letting loose of rounds after rounds after rounds of ammunition. Because now you're gonna have black kids forced out of predominantly white schools, and you're going to have white kids forced out of predominantly black schools. You're going to have Spanish kids forced into schools that will accept them unless they start their own. Now, the Jewish kids, or the Jew kids who go to Jew schools, they're going to be fine. The Catholic kids who go to Catholic schools, they're going to be fucking fine. Why? Because the school is based on their religious doctrine, not on necessarily racial doctrine. Right? So the Muslim kids who go to Muslim school, they should be fine. Why? Because they're all Muslim. Unless we want to get into the actual types of Muslim, Sunnis, Shiites, black Muslims, Yahweh ben Yahwehs, etc., etc., etc. Or we want to get into the, oh, well, I'm a Muslim from Pakistan, or I'm a Muslim from Kuwait, or I'm a Muslim from Africa, or I'm a Muslim from Europe, or I'm a Muslim from here or from there. And because your ethnicity is different, though you're both Muslim, if they want to start segregating it that way, that's going to be a problem within the Muslim community. And the same thing within the Catholic community. And the same thing within the Jew community. So you're going to bring out more problems by trying to segregate people, all because you want to keep your ethnicity pure. And a lot of this, and most of this, just stems from, plain and simple, white women killing babies too much. White people are killing people. White people are dying faster than they're birthing. So, if you want white women to stop having abortions, that's real simple. Real simple. Give them more aid for birthing children and having young children. Change the social stigmas around having children and young children. Make it much easier to be successful long term and have children, and do some more fucking. Honestly, just do more fucking. Because right now, we all know black people are out fucking white people, and Spanish people are out fucking black people. That is the trend right now. Is that black people are out fucking white people, and Spanish people are out fucking black people. Asian people and Arabic people are kind of going at the same rate in the United States. So, yeah, white people, if you want to stop having abortions, do more fucking. Give more aid to pregnant white women. Do more fucking. But you can't legally do that without giving more aid to all pregnant people, to all womb-possessing people. Oh, and we don't want to give more aid to non-white people because they have habits that we don't agree with. So, we're going to stop all womb-possessing people from being able to abort children because we don't like the fact that white women make up 60% of the aborted people in the world. White women make up 60% of the abortion patients in the United States. That is more than half. And you know what the crazy part about it is? People say that there's black on black crime. And a lot of black people be like, that's dumb. That doesn't exist. Crime is a matter of proximity, not a matter of ethnicity. Yeah, unless you're white. Then crime is a matter of ethnicity because they've been trying to kill everybody else off for a couple centuries now. Since there's this thing as black on black crime and black on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, white on white crime has to be a thing too. Okay, there's a big movement to get cops from killing black folks, and it just so happens that numerically there are more white cops than anybody else, and most of the cops that are killing black people are white. We didn't intend for it to be that way, and it's not a backdoor to attack white people. It just happens to be a fact. More white men become cops than any other ethnicity. any other demographic. If you look at any police department, if you look at the police department across the country, they overwhelmingly consist of white men. It's just a numerical fact, right? Because white men want to, quote unquote, and I do this in quotations with my fingers, protect and serve. Now, are there a lot of good cops? Yes. But because white men make up the vast majority of cops, and cops are killing black people at an extremely high rate, that equitable to an endangered species that is indeed being hunted, that means white men are killing black people. So, it's not a matter of us making shit up. It just is a fact. It is a numerically supported fact. We're not skewing the statistics here. It's the data that exists. Police are killing black people faster than any other demographic. There's always more police-related shootings against black people than any other demographic in the country. And that's a matter of fact. It's not a questionable fact. It just is a fact. There is more police-related shootings, i.e., there's more physical. Police are shooting at and actually shooting black people. Police are killing black people faster than they're killing any other demographic, right? Now, police just happen to be made up of predominantly white men. One thing may not necessarily be linked to the other, but these two things both occur. These two things are both facts, and they're both happening simultaneously. White men make up the majority of the police, and the police are killing black people faster than any other demographic in the country. So that equates to, meaning equal or is the same as, white men killing black people. Why? Because at the end of the day, you can take your fucking uniform off. Just because you put your uniform on doesn't mean you stop being the person you were before you put the uniform on. You don't wake up one day, you don't live your whole life as a black man, put on a police uniform and stop being a black man. Now you're a black man who's also a police officer. Right? So if you're a white guy and you've never killed a person, you're a white guy and you've never killed a black person, and you put on a cop uniform, now you're a white cop who's never killed a person. The moment you kill a person, then you get counted amongst those who kill people. The moment you kill a black person, you're counted amongst those who kill a black person. It's a matter of fact. It's numerical, it's mathematical. It's not we're looking for someone to blame. The numbers tell the truth. It is what it is. And if you don't like the math the way that it is, well, shit, stop killing black people. Duh. To close out the first topic, Roe v. Wade, right? And we know that this is overturning Roe v. Wade is a means to protect white life. So says the lady Ann something. I forget her name. She's a Republican. She was endorsed by Trump, and she got up on TV and she said Roe v. Wade was a win for white life. Fact. If you don't believe me, YouTube the shit. Google it. It's a thing. It happened. So overturning Roe v. Wade was a means to save white babies, because white women make up over 60% of abortion patients. All right. Next is toxic masculinity. Now, this is an interesting topic to me because as a man who thoroughly understands toxic masculinity in a plethora of forms, I'm going to explain it to you in the most inclusive way that I can. Toxic masculinity is the need to always be in control and dominate without discipline and self-control. And I have to say it that way because none of those things independently are bad. It's not bad to always have a need to be in control. This makes you a really controlling person. It's not bad to have a need to dominate. That makes you a very domineering person. It's not necessarily bad to be without discipline, given a certain discipline. And it's not bad to not have self-control, given you have self-control about certain things. So independently, these things are not bad. Independently, these things don't equate to much. They stand on their own. But together, when you have an always need, when you have a need to always be in control and dominate without discipline and without self control, you're running around here freelancing and trying to make it your way or the highway. You're not considering the input of other people, generally women and children, right? You're not being considerate of others' inputs and perspectives, and you're trying to impose your will regardless of the effect that you're having on the people. That's a problem. Toxic masculinity is always suggesting you're right and the other person is wrong, and you're doing it in a domineering and authoritative context. And in most cases, this is coming from the male perspective, hence the term mansplaining. So, I'm not a toxically masculine person. Um, as I said, I'm married with daughters. I consider their perspective. I ask for their perspective. I tell my wife, hey, she's like, hey, baby, what do you want to eat? And I'm like, whatever you're cooking. Because I told her, hey, um, when it comes to when it comes to what we eat, I'm not very picky as long as it's not these couple of things. It's like 5 or 6 things: pork, beets, um, asparagus, catfish, and grits. I don't eat those things. I'm Muslim. I don't eat pork. So whatever else she decides she wants to whip up in the kitchen, we can negotiate about. If she says, "Hey, baby, we're having fish and green beans," mean fish and green beans. Baby, we're having meatloaf and mashed potatoes, mean meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Hey, baby, I want French fries and with mustard sauce. We're eating French fries and mustard sauce. I don't give a shit. She's cooking it. We're eating it. Why? Because that gives her autonomy. And it's not just because that's the way I like it. That just happens to be the way that I function at the time. And if she asks me, hey, what do you want to eat? I'm thinking this or I'm thinking that. I'm not automatically upset because she asked me what I want to eat. Or if she says, hey, baby, I don't feel like cooking. I'll be like, okay, I was thinking this. And then I'll go in there and cook. Or these days are like, I want something specific. I'll come in there and I'll come in the kitchen. And if I see she didn't cook anything, I'll take out stuff to cook. And she's, so what are you making? Well, I'm making X. And she'll go, okay, great. And hey, are we having this too? And then we'll go about it that way. So it's not a my way of the highway, right? I don't always imply or suggest that she's wrong or that she's bad or that she could have did it better. Sometimes I'll be like, you know what? You're right. There's no, you're right. Just flat out. And she's like, hey, I did a thing. And I'm like, great. That was a good idea. Thank you. You did the thing. The thing was done well. Thing's done. Good. And she's like, hey, I have an idea. Blah, 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 blah. That's a fantastic idea. Let's do it. I don't always try to dominate and control her. And I don't do this without discipline or without self-control. I'm not telling her to go out here and commit murder. I'm not telling her to go out here and be wild and unruly and do all of this craziness. No. And I'm not telling her that she can't express herself or that she has to dress this way or that way. I give her my opinion on dressing this way or that way, but what she puts on her ass is what she puts on her ass. So I'm not domineering and I'm not controlling in that way. Um, when it comes to raising our children, if she says a thing, if our daughter comes in there and says, "Mommy, I want a cookie," and she says, "No, you can't have a cookie." When she comes to me, "Hey, what'd your mother say?" She's like, "Daddy, can I have a cookie?" Didn't your mother just tell you you couldn't have a cookie? Yes, sir. Well, don't ask me, can you have a damn cookie? The answer's still no. If mom said no, then it's no. If dad says no, then it's no. We are partners in the raising of our children, right? Um, as husband and wife, we are help mates. A mate is an equivalent. Oftentimes they are different, but they are equal. The value is an equitable value. The value is an equivalent value. One is not more or less um, worthy or useful than the other. The difference is the function, and the function doesn't make the value more or less. It just makes it different. So you buy shoes in a pair. Why? Because they're equal. One fits the right foot, one fits the left foot. They happen to do similar things because they're both shoes. But if you put on a dress shoe on your right foot and a soccer cleat on your left foot, yeah, that experience is going to be tremendously different because those shoes have tremendously different functions, right? And they don't have equal functions because they're not mates. So she is a help mate. A help mate is an equivalent partner, is an equivalent addition to. Help means to add to. To help is to add to. To add to in a positive context. So to help is to add to in a positive context. So you're adding to. You're giving more information, which allows us to be more informed and make a better decision. You're adding to who's making the food, so now the food is made faster and with more experience. You're adding to the amount of food that's being made, so now more people can then enjoy said food, right? You're adding to the conversation, so now there can be a wider range of context, given for a wider range of understanding to be had as a result of this. It is a help mate, so we are help mates of each other. We are adding to in a positive context, equivalents to each other, right? So I'm a help mate to her as she is a help mate to me. So once again, I'm not toxically masculine in that way. I do not assume the way that I do things is always correct. It is not. I've learned over time that a lot of the things that I used to do were terrible ideas and I shouldn't have been doing them, though it was the thing that I was taught. And I still am learning that some of the things that I think were okay to do at a certain point are no longer okay to do. And some of the things that I thought were okay to do are no longer okay to do because I was misinformed, because the people who informed me were misinformed. So now I had to go learn new ways of doing several different things. And I'm still learning, hey, even though I changed the way I do that thing, hey, this thing that I'm doing now needs some tweaking because it's not as effective as it could be or should be, right? So I'm not without discipline or self-control. I look at myself and a lot of things that I used to do, I just purely don't anymore. Like I don't drink. I try not to curse as much. You know, I don't go sleep around. Hey man, I got a wife. If I can't get it at home, I don't need to have it. In that regard, you understand what I'm talking about. So, I don't lack discipline and self-control in that manner. So no, I'm not toxically masculine. I don't assume that I'm right because I'm a dude or because I'm a man or a male. I don't assume that you're wrong because you're not me or that you're not a man or a male. I don't. I don't assume just because it's the way that I understand the thing that it must be the way that the thing is always understood. It is not. It is merely the way that I understand it. And do I expect everybody to understand it the way I understand it? No, I do not. They're going to understand it the way they understand it. And that is going to be determined by that person at that person's speed, that person's level of depth and efficiency. And it's going to be applied based on that person's level of understanding, cognition, and effort. So, not toxically masculine. Though I understand toxic masculinity, I don't behave in the toxic masculinity. The second part of this is the assumption of toxic masculinity in women. I'm going to piss a lot of people off when I make this next statement, though I'm going to make it anyway. There are so many women in today's society who are trying to be men. Whether they're trying to be men physically, whether they're trying to be men socially, whether they're trying to be men sexually, whether they're trying to be men physiologically or anatomically. There's a lot of women out here trying to be men. And no, this is not a shot at transgender people. You just happen to be included in contextually in what constitutes trying to be a man. Now, there are a lot of women who grew up and they took on the masculine role because they did not have an upright, standing masculine figure available to them in their immediate context, in their immediate area, meaning in their household, or in their complex, or in their day-to-day, right? Or if they did, they assumed that position over another person. in every relationship, there's the more aggressive, there's the more masculine one, and there's the more passive one or ones, right? You got two super masculine people. Somebody's gonna have to take the more passive role, or the more feminine role in the situation, whether it's man to woman, or woman to woman, right? And hey, if you're gonna assume the more masculine role, sure, that's entirely up to you. But I say to this: if you do not have the physicality of the man, biologically, physiologically, anatomically, you don't have that physicality. Don't assume that attitude. And what I mean by that is, if you are not prepared to defend yourself as in the same manner that a biologically born, anatomically born, physiologically born male, i.e., cisgender male, would, don't challenge them in that way, is my recommendation. I grew up in the man to woman context, right? Seeing my mother and my father, and then my mother and my stepfather when my father passed on. Seeing my brothers with their wives, and seeing my sisters with their husbands. So I grew up with the male to female context, right? Now I've seen gay people my whole life, but they were in my home. So in my home, I had the male to female context, or the female to male context, right? And I've watched plenty of women challenge their men as if the woman was now a man, and then when she is responded to as if she is now a man, then she results back to, well, I'm a woman, you're not supposed to treat me this way. So I tell all women, hey, remember, if you're dealing with a man and you challenge him like a man, he's going to treat you like a man. So don't go challenging him like a man, and then when he responds to your ass like a man, you're going to tell other men that this man hit this that man hit this woman like hit me, the woman, as if I was a man. Tell the story in its entirety. Tell the whole truth. Don't just tell the one side. In the words of Ali Sadiq, woman to get a man a domestic violence case when he ain't even hit you like that, because they gonna run and tell they friend, they play brother, and all of those type of bullshit that the man just jumped on you. But what you didn't tell him is that man told you 27,000 times to go on. You know what? You getting disrespectful, I'm going to leave. I'm going on, going on, going on. But you followed his ass around the house fucking with him. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? You ain't gonna do shit to me. Da 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 da. End quote. So, don't do that. Don't go antagonizing that man. Leave that man the fuck alone. If you got a problem, address your problem. But don't do it in a manner that physically challenges that man. Because when he responds to you like a man, you're going to have to take that ass whooping like a man. And I've told several women, I say, listen, you are a woman that don't believe in hitting women, except for one circumstance. The moment you swing on me, the moment you stop being a woman. So, you swing on me, or you start swinging lethal objects at me, commonly felt tip pens, knives, nunchucks, frying pans, chairs, shit like that, you stop being a woman, because you're challenging me as if you're a man. So then I'm going to treat you like one. But no, I'm not going to abuse you outright, and I'm not going to beat you like you stole something. But if you challenge me like a man, I'm going to handle you like one. So just don't challenge me in that manner. If you have a problem, hey, we're both cognitive adults. Let's sit down and talk about it. Your feelings is hurt. Well, go take the time you need to get your feelings together. We can come back and talk about it like cognitive adults, right? Because it ain't but two ways I handle shit. When it comes to dealing with grown people, there's two ways I handle shit. We're going to talk like competent adults, or we can get off into some gangster shit. And either way, don't matter to me. I prefer to talk. but we can go and take this shit outside if need be. So, in the relationship, I understand that, and so the assumption of toxic masculinity. A lot of women want to be men. They want to take on the more aggressive and assertive roles, which are not necessarily bad to be aggressive and assertive. I wish women were more assertive and more direct. But you want to take on that aggressive role, that assertive role, and you do it with a masculine tone. You want to step to men as if you were the man in the relationship. That's problematic. A lot of them want to assert well, men can do it, so why is it a problem when I do it? If you agree that it's the wrong thing to do, that's the problem. Just because men doing it doesn't make it right, doesn't make it good. It still be some dumb shit that men do. Men do a lot of dumb shit on a daily basis. Just because we're doing it doesn't mean you should do it too. If it's dumb, you look at it as some dumb shit. You got a problem with us doing it, don't go do it just to prove a fucking point, because that doesn't make you any better than us. All that does, it actually makes you worse than us, because you had the cognition, you had the logic, deduction, and reasoning to analyze the behavior and go, I have a problem with the behavior, and then still choose to conduct the behavior. That makes you worse than the person who was blindly or innately conducting the behavior. That's crazy. And ladies, for crying out loud, please, stop trying to go tit for tat with people. Stop it. Stop trying to go tit for tat with people. Because an eye for an eye leaves a bunch of blind motherfuckers. And in the land of the blind, the man with one eye is king. So, stop trying to go tit for tat. It doesn't work out in your favor. And people will be like, well, he cheated on me, so I'm gonna cheat on him. Oh, so if he jumped off a bridge, you gonna jump off that motherfucker too? That's dumb. If he drank fucking liquid cyanide, you gonna drink liquid cyanide too? No, that's dumb. That's fucking stupid. If you disagree with the behavior, don't go and then do the same behavior. But the problem is that that search for the equitable result. Because to me, it's not so much that they want to do the thing that we do. They want to generate the result that we get. A lot of women have a problem with the double standards, and some of them I agree with. Some of them I disagree with. The fighting against the double standards. Some of those double standards I think make perfect sense. Some of those I think make absolutely no sense. One of the things that I believe make sense, right, is that women have a right to reproductive privacy and autonomy that we have to make provisions for that men don't have. And I think that, and it's a double standard. Women can do it, but men can't. I think that is adequate because they possess an ability and a capability that we don't possess. They need things that we don't need. I have testicles and motherfucking prostate. I do not menstruate. I don't have a menstrual cycle. So therefore, I don't need fucking Midol and tampons or sleeping with a heating pad or motherfucking panty liners because I don't menstruate. So I don't need the care of a person who menstruates. I do not need menstrual care because I don't menstruate. Make sense? So the provision of said care is required for the people who menstruate. But since I don't menstruate, I don't need that care. So it's okay that she gets it and I don't. Why? She needs it. I don't. Double standard. It makes sense. Women can do it, men can't. Perfectly fine. Right? Like the idea that if a woman, if that two women can be naked in a room and two women can be in a room and be naked and nobody's going to have a problem with that. But two boys are in a room and they're naked, people are going to ask questions. That comes from that comes from a stigma of homosexuality being bad, and most people don't assume that women are homosexual, even though the likelihood that a woman is sexually curious about being with a woman is generally higher than that of a man being sexually curious about being with another man, right? But there's not necessarily a negative stigma or negative connotation to a woman being homosexual and or bisexual, right? But there's a stigma to a man being homosexual and or bisexual, right? Because toxic masculinity says that men aren't supposed to be homosexual or bisexual. Listen, once again, I'm not toxically masculine, so I don't have that problem. Who you fucking ain't none of my business unless we fucking. Who I'm fucking ain't none of your business unless we fucking. Just that simple. And if you want to imply that that's a problem, too bad. Because I don't give a fuck who you fucking unless we fucking. You know what I'm saying? So that's not something we need to conversate about. It's not something that I worry about. It's not that ain't my get down. It ain't none of my business. It ain't none of your business. So, once again, the double standard that a woman can be naked with another woman in the midst of another woman who's also naked, and there's no assumption of homosexuality. There's no negative connotation there. But when two men are naked together, there's an assumption of homosexuality and there's negative connotation there. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that assumption at all. I think that's foolish, and I think that's very arrogant. That's not necessarily arrogant, but that's very presumptuous, and that is very toxic in the form of you negatively contextualizing two men being naked. You're negatively contextualizing homosexuality. Whether you agree with it or not is entirely up to you. It's a very personal choice. But I don't think that we should negatively contextualize it just because we don't agree with the behavior. If I don't agree with the behavior, doesn't mean I get to negatively contextualize the behavior merely because I don't agree with it. I can really say I don't agree with it. I disagree with the behavior. And that as far as that needs to go, and then I choose not to partake in the behavior. Simple. It's really simple, right? And that goes for any behavior, right? But and so I gave an example of a double standard that I agree with and a double standard that I don't agree with. A double standard that I agree with. A double standard is, and I'm not even gonna get into another one that I agree with, but you get the point, you get the gist of it, right? Some of the double standards we have make sense, and some of them we have don't. We had laws that said women couldn't do a lot of things that most health professionals would probably say you shouldn't do for long-term health. Doesn't mean you can't. It probably means you shouldn't. And so I wouldn't make laws saying that they can't do things just because I believe they shouldn't do the thing. I still give them the choice to do the thing. But one of the ways that I view that toxic masculinity in women is the expectation of men that you to provide that which you can't and or don't provide for yourself knowingly and willingly. Perfect example. You want a man who you want a high value man, as they like to say. It's a new term. High value man. You want a man that makes six figures and has an extremely flexible schedule and can afford to pamper you and take you all over the world. But when they ask, what are you bringing to the table? And you disagree with all the things that he's expecting of you. That doesn't add up, right? Say, oh, you need a high value man. He makes six figures. He's super intelligent. He's disciplined. He takes care of himself both physically and mentally and spiritually, and he can afford to take you all over the place, right? And he's romantic, and he's trusting and loving and caring. hmm And then he's like, I want a woman. He's like, I want a woman that's gonna cook and clean. And you're like, I ain't doing that. Well, you don't want that high value man, now do you? You know, you're refusing to be what he considers high value, but you expect him to be what you consider high value. That's terrible. And they do that, and a lot of women are doing that from a very bolsterous and arrogant and masculine standpoint. Like, no, I'm not about to deal with you if you don't make X amount of money, because the guys who don't make X amount of money are less than. That's fucked up. That's actually incorrect, because the amount of money you make doesn't make you better or worse. It just means you make or less money. Because you can have a better time with a person who makes $40,000 than you can with a person who makes $140,000, because of the quality of the person, not the size of their bank account. But because we have the modern woman who is more focused on the materialistic aspects of life, um, generating the experience of saying, I went here and did these things, versus I thoroughly enjoyed this person's company. This person was open and honest and genuine with me. Vice, oh, he took me to Cabo, or we went to Venezuela. Where'd y'all go? Girl, we was in Toronto for 2 days. Then we flew to New York. We was in New York for a week. Then we went and saw his peoples down in Atlanta, and we was all up and down the strip. Girl, we towed we towed them all down. And then we was in Miami, and we was doing this, that, and the third. And then he took me to Vegas. And then we went from Vegas, we went to Japan. Yeah, he can take you all over the place and buy you nice shit. But he's a dickhead and he cheats on you all the time. So you have commitment and trust issues, but you live in a nice house and you get to go to places all the time and buy new fancy shit. Doesn't make him a high value man. It makes him a person with a large bank account. He's a dickhead. Where is his value? Where's the value in his character? Where are his morals? Where are his disciplines? Where is he taking care of himself physically, emotionally, spiritually? Where are his hobbies? Are his hobbies constructive? Partying is not a constructive hobby. Party managing may be a constructive hobby. You enjoy it, it's lucrative, and it's something that causes you a lot of joy and very little stress. That may be something that may be a constructive hobby, and also a means of generating income, and that may speak to the character of the person. So a high value man does not mean a man with a large bank account. What is his character like? What is his morals like? You know, how does he treat people? Does he treat his car? Does he treat the person who drives his car? Because if he's a high value man, he make all this money. Does he treat the car? Does he treat the person who washes his car with the same dignity and respect as he treats the person who hands him his money from the bank? Does he treat his employees? Does he treat his employees the same way he treats his business partners? You know, is he kind and gentle? Is he a good listener? Does he read? Is he a very well learned man? hmm You know, can he cook? Does he take out the garbage? You know, what does he do things that are indicative of having a high standard of moral character? Is he a honorable man? Does he have principles and values? No, you worried about the man's bank account and his dick size. You listen to these women talk in the from the context, and I use this in air quotes, of the modern woman. She sounds very aggressive, very arrogant, very boisterous, and she emphasizes his sexual ability and his bank account. And then she also exemplifies his inability to commit and maintain fidelity to you. But they use words like, "Oh, he's a cheat," or "These men are all cheaters," and they not loyal. They for the streets. They not for you. So what you're saying is you're picking men who have very low moral character. You're picking men who don't have honor. You're picking men who don't have discipline. So you're picking very low value men who have large bank accounts. Got it. That doesn't, just because you have a large bank account doesn't make you a high value man. It just makes you a man with a large bank account. The value comes from the behavior. The value is in the behavior. It's in the cognition. The value is in the behavior. It's not in the it's not in the it's not in the stuff. It's in the who, not the stuff. You know, it's in the behavior. It's not in the property, because people are not property. So, I'm gonna wrap that part up with: don't be a toxic woman, and don't be a toxic woman by trying to constantly dispel your negative energy onto other people, and don't be a toxically masculine woman by trying to downplay men and and assume their positions. Don't do that. The last topic for today, like I said, in previous episodes, we do two sort of serious topics and one more lighthearted. Third topic for today is lacrosse in the Olympics. I'm an avid lacrosse player and fan of lacrosse, right? I've played lacrosse since 2007. Started off as a midfielder, then I moved to attack, both are offensive positions. And then circa 2015, I tried my hand at defense and been a defenseman ever since. So for the last 7 years, I've been a defenseman. So I play with the long stick, full contact, helmets, and pads. Now, lacrosse in the Olympics. The World Lacrosse Association, or World Lacrosse as they're called, is working with USA Lacrosse to get into 2028 Summer Olympics, and that is amazing. I personally think lacrosse is a very great sport, and you can learn a lot from lacrosse. It takes a lot of strategies and concepts from from other sports, predominantly football, hockey, soccer, and basketball. So when I explain to people what lacrosse is, I ask them, do they watch hockey? And they go, so you're familiar with how hockey works, right? They go, yes. I says it's effectively hockey through the air on a soccer field. Trade the ice for soccer field. Trade the puck for a rubber ball. Trade your skates for cleats. Throw the ball through the air versus slapping the puck on the ice. And that's the gist of the game. And they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I'm a big fan of lacrosse being in the Olympics, because not only does that give another avenue for lacrosse players to participate in, it grows the game and it publicizes it, and it puts it on that world stage as being a respectable sport, because people still have this terrible notion that lacrosse is a white guy prep sport, because it was predominantly displayed as a white guy prep sport. It was harbored on the northeastern coast for such a long time, and it was exclusive to Ivy League schools: Princeton, Harvard, Yale, Penn, Cornell, etc. To where you had to have money to play, because it's a rather expensive sport, because the gear is customized to the particular player. This game is brought to us by the Haudenosaunee people, commonly referred to as the Iroquois. So if you ever see that purple flag with the white boxes with the lines connecting them and a diamond in the middle, the Six Nations, like I said, commonly referred to as the Iroquois, which is a French term, because when the French first encountered the Haudenosaunee people, they could not say Haudenosaunee. And the word eludes me at the moment, but the actual word in Haudenosaunee for what we call lacrosse is equates to "they bump hips," or it's translated as "they bump hips." because most of the contact is shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, similar to hockey. Hence the analogy and the reference. Um, so yeah, lacrosse in the Olympics is to me is a big deal. Like I said, it puts lacrosse on a world stage in a more prestigious light because it is on a world stage now, um, but in a less to a lesser degree. We compete internationally. By we, I mean lacrosse players compete internationally in the World Games and the World Cup. They just actually had the World Games a few weeks ago, where USA took the gold for women's lacrosse, um, and rightfully so because we kick ass at lacrosse. I would like to see the Haudenosaunee take it because it's their game. It would be more fitting to me for the Haudenosaunee to win it because it's their game. It would be something that is theirs. But as a citizen of the United States, I was not. I was I was joyed to see the U.S. beat it and to for the U.S. to win gold comparison to to many other countries, England, Canada, Mexico, uh, Spain, and so forth and so on. Now, these are all top-notch athletes who got out there and they worked their asses off. You know, I can't talk down on any of those teams because they all got out there and they did it. They did it. Um, Coming from where they're from and the conditions that they have, they fucking did it. Jamaica fielded a team. Mexico fielded a team. This Australia fielded a team. China fielded a team. So it was a lot of good competition with some of the best players in the world, kicking ass and taking names on both the men's and the women's side. So it was a joy to watch. The few games that I did get to watch, busy guy, so I didn't get to sit down and watch them all. But the games that I did get to watch, it was wonderful to see these countries get out there and putting it together. Colombia had a team. So, like I said, it's very very enjoyable, and I think it'll boost lacrosse to that next stage and give that prestige because now the the U.S. national team can compete in the Olympics, and I use that in air quotes because that's the prestige, is the best of the best, and to have that sport recognized at that level means the expectation is a bit higher, the social stigma is a bit higher, and so that urge to win is a bit higher, and the checks are bigger, right? Because people are going to put more money into backing you. And right now, we got a lot of front runner programs, front running companies in support of lacrosse. Under Armour, Adidas, Nike, um, East Coast Dyes, Maverick, Warrior, Brine, Gate, Lacrosse. Uh, you know, I think Reebok is getting into lacrosse too. So, just to name a few. And so you'll have more of an outlet to display the game to a broader audience and draw more interest to where it becomes more of an expectation for people to play lacrosse and less of a surprise because we're still in the era of basketball, baseball, football, if you're a guy, um, softball, basketball, volleyball, if you're a girl, track and field is kind of hit or miss. Gymnastics is still predominantly a female dominated sport. And then you're bringing in things like swimming, which is 50-50. Water polo is 50-50. Hockey's still a male dominated sport, right? But in a lot of countries, hockey is not a thing that they do. You very rarely see a Jamaican hockey team or a hockey team from an African country. Not places where it snows. So the likelihood of you seeing a hockey team for a place where it doesn't snow is a lot less than it is from a place where it snows. It's easy to see Canadian hockey teams. It snows like crazy in Canada. It's easy to see American hockey teams. It snows like crazy in America. But the likelihood that you're going to see a hockey team from Belize is a lot different than is a lot less than the likelihood of seeing a hockey team from, I don't know, the U.S. So more on this lacrosse and the Olympics thing, right? Like I said, I think it's dope, and it gives that extra leg up. And unlike the current high school or college or pro level, it's going to be run in a 6-man format. So you'll have a goalie and 5 field players on a shorter field. So instead of it being, say, 120 by 80 or 120 by 60, it'll be, more like 85 by like 60, 85 by like 45. So much smaller field, approximately 2/3 the size. So the shot clock concept will be different. Um, Less calls because it's moving. It's more of a running clock, so it's a faster paced game, and there's less people on the field, so the demand on the athletes are less per person, or it's over a lesser period of time per person. So that's going to be a different way of seeing the game played, because lacrosse can be a long, sort of drawn out game, similar to pro soccer, where it's a lot of action but not a lot of goal scoring. Lacrosse is a high scoring goal game. Is a high scoring game where you'll get into the teens, even at the high school level. You'll get teams that the score is not 2-3, four to two. You're talking easily. Hey, it's 15 to 13, or it's you know 17 to 12, and sometimes you'll get up there. Hey man, this team scored 23 goals, right? So um, having a shorter field with less players with a running clock, that concept makes that dynamic increase when we're talking about shots per minute, goals per minute. It's a much faster paced game, and it forces you to keep your legs going. And it's right now it's the fastest game on 2 feet. So I'm excited about it. And I can't wait to see it. PLL. The next part of this is PLL All Star results. I'm a big fan of the Premier Lacrosse League, which is the professional outdoor lacrosse league. The the other one is the National Lacrosse League, or the NLL, um, which is the Indoor Lacrosse League. We also refer to it as box lacrosse because they play it on a hockey rink. So the goals are smaller, the rink is smaller. Um, you play with gym shoes, vice cleats. Everybody's got a short stick. Goalie wears tremendously much more padding, um, but it's a really fast paced game. So with the PLL All Star results, Team Baptiste beat Team Farrell. It's fairly one sided. Um, most of my favorite players are on Team Baptiste, and so I went with those guys, um, because it was made up of people I would have picked anyway, right? Really good mashup of guys, and all of the players, man, all of the players are dope. They're all elite level lacrosse players who deserve their shine and deserve their spots. And it was a joy to watch, man. Like, it was fantastic, shot after shot, goal after goal. Um, I was a little upset because they introduced this thing called a I think it's a money ball. Basically, they swapped out the standard like neon yellowish green balls for a pink ball, and the pink ball was all the values of the points doubled. So if you scored with the pink ball inside the arc, it was 2 points vice one. If you scored outside the arc, it was 4 points vice two. I was a little upset that they didn't get any 4 pointer shots, but excuse me, it was still very entertaining. I would like to see some 4 pointers, but you know what? Those guys went to work. Miles Jones had a phenomenal game. Will Manny. Man, it was just like Sergio Perkovic, just shot after shot. A shout out to Jared Newman, though he played on Team Farrell. You know, uh, he still won fastest shot, and it's kind of one of my favorite defensemen in the league. You know, shout out Depot Life, that part. Um, that dude shot 116 miles an hour. So this is his second time winning it. So big ups to Jared Newman on his accomplishment as a PLO All Star, fastest shots, 2-time winner now. Um, I would have liked to see a Redwoods player win it, but it would have been dope if Miles Jones would have won it, but he didn't. Um, I think maybe he should try with a depot because he played depot in like middle school and high school a little bit. So he started off in lacrosse as a depot and switched to midfield. So I think him as a defenseman would be a joy to watch because he's a large guy. 6'5", 250 plus pounds. Like, that's a large person. And he can move just as agile as a 185-pound receiver. So imagine him as a defender would be mind blowing. Talk about a bull rush. And if he can get his shot going with the depot, um, with the same level of accuracy as he does with a short stick, lethal. Two bomb city. That part. So yeah, man. It was a joy to watch. Can't wait. I look forward to next year. They put out some new concepts for jerseys for next season. A couple of them are pretty dope. I'm not a fan of the green one for the Redwoods. That's my team, Redwoods Lacrosse Club. Roll Woods. Not a fan of the concept that came up with that jersey, but some of the other ones were pretty dope. The Chaos is dope. The white one I saw for the Whip Snakes is fire. That fire. Ah, fire. Um, Even though I'm a Redwoods fan, I appreciate a clean jersey. But back to the PLO All Star game, man. I gotta get me though one of those gold jerseys, man. Those gold jerseys were amazing. This orange, yellow, gold sort of color, man, with the imprinted backing or the textured backing, fire. With the white stripe with the stars on it, with the white stripe down the leg with the stars, mm, absolute beautiful, just fantastic, man. Those jerseys, fire. So I gotta give me a Miles Jones in the All Star Gold, and I gotta give me a Jared Newman in the All Star Black. That Jared Newman was sick. I would have loved to see Baptiste and Farrell duke it out, but Baptiste he was coaching, he was sidelining, shall I say, um, um, resting up from an injury. But I would love to see him and Farrell duke it out. Um, Center field, who's the best Fogo in the league. I, you know what? I grew up um, watching face-off guys like like the Beast, Greg Garillion, absolute monster at the face-off X. Like he runs the face-off academy. You want to learn how to be a good Fogo? Listen, when that man talks, you shut up and you take notes, okay? Plain and simple. Trevor Baptiste shows up. I don't know nothing about lacrosse. I got to learn everything about lacrosse again, especially when it comes to face off, because that man is an absolute wizard. Farrell shows up, wizard. Both of those guys are beasts. But yeah, man. I gotta get me a Trevor Baptiste All Star jersey. I gotta get me a Miles Jones All Star jersey. I gotta get me a Jared Newman in the black, and I want to get a Rob Pennell in the black. Yeah, I know, but he plays for the Redwoods. That's one of my guys. But he played for the other team this year. Um, but he did his thing, man. He showed his veteran leadership out there, and the man's a wizard with a fucking lacrosse stick. So
Um, Next thing, PLL folds. Not the PLL. I'm sorry. So we had a league for women in lacrosse, a professional league for women in lacrosse called the WPLL. So the Women's Professional Lacrosse League, and it kind of mirrored the PLL's model with the tour based model. So instead of having teams that were set in a given area and they played almost exclusively in that area, and they homesteaded in that area, and then that tour model kind of forced them to move around and play games all throughout the country. Right? They did it. They were kind of like home. They were kind of like half homestead, half tour. Um, with COVID, they only did about two, maybe three seasons. I think they got 2019. They got 2019, and then COVID hit 2020, which kind of toppled their season. And they tried to come back for 21 and just couldn't. So they ended up folding. So they really only got like maybe a season, maybe two seasons. Possibly like a season and a half. But there's a new thing called Athletes Unlimited, which allows professional athletes, predominantly women, allows professional athletes to continue playing in a league to where it's not a team based model, it's a player based model. And what I mean by that is, instead of you being assigned to a specific group of teammates for the duration of a season, you are an individual player and you earn points based on your performance. So it's really boosting the individual performance. It boosts it pushes each player to perform at their best, and whichever player um, earns the most amount of points that week um, becomes a captain of a team, becomes a captain of a team the following week, and then they'll pick their team, and then they'll pick their team, and then come game day, two captains, two teams, and they duke it out. And I'm sure there's more rules to it that I may not be privy to, but that's how it worked when they explained it in the lacrosse context. Um, Athletes Unlimited also has, from what I've seen, volleyball, basketball, and softball, which is pretty freaking dope. I would love to see more of it. I think it's a really neat concept to have this player based model versus the team based model, so you don't get the homesteading problem, and you don't have to continuously provide for the egos of the players. It's more motivating on a week to week basis because they get to sharpen their skills and they get to see what works and what doesn't. Hey, scoring 12 goals and 7 assists might get you team captain in week 2, but week 3 that won't cut it because someone's gonna outdo you. Because they went okay, yeah, 12 goals, 7 assists was the model for last week. I'm gonna up the ante and I'm getting 14. I'm getting 14 and 12. I might get 9 goals, but I'm getting 17 assists, and an X number of draw controls, right? So I'm up in the ante and I'm shifting that paradigm so I can get more points, right? And I'm sure there's a breakdown on how to earn points across the given positions because the categories that are measured for a defenseman, I'm sure aren't the same categories for a goalie or the same categories for a midfielder or an attackman. So, excuse me. So, yeah, I'm gonna dive more into that on the research piece. But I think it is fantastic, man, that these women have an outlet that they can play at a professional level that allows them to show off their skills and keep the game alive, man. I would like for them to eventually get back to more of a team based model, maybe doing the tour based concept versus the homestead concept. Um, not just because the PLL does it, more so because it works and it gives the players a valid salary, so you don't have to, as Paul Rabel, former player in the PLL and co-founder of the PLL, once said, I played professional lacrosse, but also moonlighted as a retail agent or as a financial consultant just so I can pay the bills. Right? That's not fair.
if I put the time in and the effort in the gym and in my workouts to be a professional athlete, I should be getting paid as a professional athlete. I should have insurance as a professional athlete. I should be able to wake up every day, train for, and then go play my sport. And that be the thing that pays the bills, right? Now, if I want alternate means of income, I should be able to have that option, but I shouldn't need it just to make a decent wage or just to earn a living, okay? And I'm glad that he did that, man. The PLL was game-changing, and it ended up absorbing the other outdoor league, which is the Major Lacrosse League, which is what he was in before, and it gave so many more players the opportunity to play at this elite level, and they ended up absorbing them and creating and keeping one of the teams, hence the Cannons Lacrosse Club, which came off the hills of the Boston Cannons. I was a Florida Launch fan, and I was a little sad to see them go. So if they ever brought back another outdoor lacrosse league of that caliber in Florida, I would highly recommend that they restore the Florida Launch. I was a fan of the color scheme. I was a fan of the player concepts, the players they had, right? So a big Woodson fan. Yeah, man, Tucker Durkin, you know, he doesn't play. He used to play for the Redwoods. He doesn't play for the Redwoods anymore, but he also played for the Florida Launch. I actually have his T-shirt around here somewhere. But yeah, so I was a big fan. Actually, that was the first professional lacrosse game I went to see. Was the Florida Launch versus, I think they were the Dallas Rattlers at the time. I think it was the Dallas Rattlers. Man, and I had a really good time, a really good experience at that game, man, and I'll never forget it. And that's where I bought a lot of my cool stuff. And I was just sold on being a Florida Launch fan. But yeah, so I would like to, like I said, I would like the women's game to go back to a team-based model, because then you could build a lot of that camaraderie by following the team vice the individual player, and you create a bit more fandom, and you would increase the revenue for women's sports, because the fandom around the WNBA is increasing, around the WNFC, Women's National Football Conference, the WFA, the Women's Football Alliance. Shout out to both of those organizations to where they create a space for women to play professional level tackle football, and those women are dope. Like, they get out there and they suit up and they hit and they truck people, and they're throwing 30, 40, 50-yard passes, and they're juking people and spin moves and flat lines and blitzes like they're playing football. It's not women's football, it's football. And it is amazing to watch. It is a beautiful thing to see a person line up, read the defense, call the audible, hand the ball off, and the running back 2 steps, breaks through the line, spins off the defender, spins off the linebacker, outruns the safety in the corner for 6 points, and then when she get to the sideline and take off her helmet, and she fine. Yeah, man, I have daughters, so for them to see women do amazing things is wonderful. It's necessary, and it's beautiful, man, because women can do so much, and the time for limiting women to what we think they can do is drastically over. It's very, very antiquated, and time to get up out of here with that. So we're gonna get ahead and close out this episode, man. So it's been a long time coming. We still at it. The BlackShot podcast. I said it's episode 10, and we're gonna get more episodes going. Get next season rolling, and yeah, man, get this thing popping and get some more good discussions going on. Get some more people on the podcast and see what's what. That part. Treat the comment box like the penalty box. Get in there and get the fans moving. Let's hear what you got to say, my baby. This is your host, Young Tony, man. It's the BlackShot podcast. What up, dog?
I'm at your neck, son.